hey, there are quite a few teams that no longer have just one closer. So I wonder, do you see your team this winter pursuing a closer or someone who's at least whose clear role would be to get big outs in the late innings, whether that's the ninth inning or not?
I don't. I think that certainly there's some guys out there that are defined closers, but I think where we're at, I think the bullpen next year is going to be a position of strength. We had a lot of guys finish out games for us that'll be on the roster next year. So I just don't see us going that route.
Dave, I'm wondering about like when you talk about the bullpen, and I guess how much do you have to weigh, the personnel in the room versus the system, right? Like I always feel like there's a tug of war at times. Like we know generally what works and we're trying to like put these guys in, but you're trying to adapt also to whether it's injury but then you get to the postseason, it's all concentrated. Do you find that there's the little bit of that tug of war between, like a methodology of like how the organization approaches situations versus like who's in the room?
Yeah. Absolutely. So there's a lot of conversations that go on with pitching, certainly. And a methodology, a system, strengths, weaknesses, there's a lot of that goes into that. And knowing the player, and is the moment going to be too big for that player? As a coach, you're always kind of the whole adage of put players in the best positions to have success. And so with the information that we have, I have a lefty up there and Bryce Harper comes up and this guy can't spin the baseball. That's a hard one for me to kind of reconcile and say, hey, in a big spot, I want, even though he throws with his left arm, to try to get Bryce out, where it's like, I need something going away from him. And so this guy's got velocity, but can't spin the baseball to Bryce Harper. For me, yeah, could he get the guy out? Sure. But am I going to put the organization's fate in this player's hands, which I feel that he doesn't have the weapons to get Bryce Harper out in a big spot? I'll probably make another decision. And those are things that, on the margins, you can kind of bet on a guy and go that route and live with kind of the consequences of knowing he doesn't have the weapons, or you bet on the tool shed. So those are kind of things that, we talk a lot about, and me with the pitching guys, the front office, we are aligned, and we are. And so that's kind of a little peek behind the curtain.
Hey, let's look forward a little bit at maybe what else you'd like to see your team accomplish this offseason. Left side of your infield, Trey Turner, free agent, Justin Turner, free agent. Where do you think that could lead you?
Well, first off, Trey's, he's earned this opportunity to test the market out. I loved having Trey with us. And so I know we're going to be by the backboard, and I think that him and his wife, Kristen, softened up to the West Coast and loved Los Angeles, and we'll see if it makes sense. But if it doesn't work with Trey, we have, one of our homegrown guys, Gavin Lux, who we're probably looking at kind of, filling in right there at short. Justin Turner's a free agent. And so I don't know how it's going to end up with Justin, who plays some third base for us, who's been a stalwart with the Dodgers, and Roberto Clemente Award winner and consummate professional. But Max Muncy played third for us last year, could slide over to second base. Miguel Vargas, guys, is somebody who's going to play next year for us a lot. Whether he breaks with us or not, he's a guy that homegrown guy, top prospect. He needs a look, needs a runway. So we're going to do that for him. But I think Andrew Friedman is very good at kind of stand by the back, but like I said, the backboard, and seeing kind of what falls to us and what direction we can go or pivot if we need to.
One name you didn't mention at second base was Mookie Betts. Just curious, is Mookie a realistic option to place a significant number of games at second base if that's how it falls?
At his choice, yes. He loves second base, and So we'll see. I think the main thing is that his openness and willingness, that obviously you're talking about a big right-handed right fielder that is a free agent that could play right field, which would make that move make sense. So again, we're keeping all options open.
Well, Dave, it's interesting. It's almost like you looked ahead into the future, because we talked a lot during the season, it's particularly in like August, September, when Betts was playing second and guys were playing different positions. And you talked about how it kind of kept them sharp. And do you see how that could actually play a benefit in how the Dodgers as an organization looks into free agency? Because you kind of created all this versatility.
Absolutely. Because even it's so powerful when the player owns it, wants it. And for Mookie, in this particular case, he just feels that he doesn't want a DH. He doesn't want off days. So if he can play second base, that's a break for his body, his mind. It keeps it fun and interesting. And he's a very good ball player and he can play there. So it's a huge benefit. And we have that same thing with Max Muncy, who we can slide to second to third, give him a DH day. But having Mookie in particular to go from the grass to the dirt opens up a lot of things.
Well, I haven't thought enough about this. The idea of like one of the best outfielders on earth who then plays a bunch of games at second base every year. I don't think we've seen much of that. I'll get back to you once I've done the work on it, but amazing. I want to ask you about your rotation too. Tyler Anderson just signed with the Angels. Did you see that coming? And he had a big year, right? So how tough a loss is that?
It's a big loss, and we gave him the qualifying offer, and he went and got I think it was a 2 or 3 year deal with the Angels. And it's a big loss in the sense that, not only the workload, the posting, which he did as well as anybody in baseball, the compete, and he even says, his best tool is his confidence in his compete. And a guy that throws 90 with a changeup, he's got to have that confidence and trust to throw the ball over the plate. And so, yeah, having someone to kind of backfill log innings to be dependable is something that we're certainly targeting. Clayton's back, Julio's back. We don't get Walker back to hopefully September. Dustin May will be healthy. He'll have a healthy offseason, but coming off TJ, you got to manage his innings. We got some other guys that are on the come in the system that are really close, but to have that kind of dependable major league starter is something that is going to be a priority for us. But yeah, Tyler's going to be a big loss.
You mentioned Clayton. Have you talked to Clayton? He was so good in those 22 starts last year. I know he does a little different now, but the results were so similar to vintage Clayton. What's his state of mind these days, and what's driving him?
Well, obviously he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Once he gets driving is to win a championship, another one. I think with Clayton, the thing that I've seen as far as growth is he's more kind of open to where his body is at, and it doesn't take away from his desire or compete, but I think he's just more self-aware that you just can't go as hard as you can for as long as you can and expect it to just be there. And so we've managed his body, his innings really well, and I think he's agreed with that, supported that. So when he does get on the mound, it's like you said, vintage Clayton. But to expect him to go out there and throw 200 innings, I don't think that we expect that, nor Clayton. But to have him ready for the postseason is sort of what we're all aligned with.
You mentioned earlier that your team's been linked with some of the biggest starters on the market. I'm sure you don't want to name those names, so I'm happy to name them for you. Justin Verlander comes to mind. Jacob deGrom comes to mind when I start making my calls and ask about the Dodgers and all sorts of stuff. It's clear Andrew is doing what he always does. He's in on everything and everybody. But in this case, is there a need and a place and enough dollars in the checking account for another top of the rotation type starter on your team?
Yeah, again, it's kind of, we talked about the right fielder who's free, and then you're talking about top end starters. So I think that we're going to be in play, and I think that for us, kind of what makes sense for the roster. Every option's open, but yeah, you talk about deGrom, Verlander, those are the two best guys on the market, and so there's certainly interest, and for me personally, I've admired how those guys go about things, and as a manager, you always want all the best players. So I'm still trying to be sensitive to payroll, but I'll take Verlander and deGrom. So we have conversations a lot, but I'm probably biased, but I just think Andrew does it better than anybody. I really do.